Hello, welcome back to Emotionally Unavailable. I'm your host, Malisa Hepner. So good to see everybody. I don't see anyone. Anyway, okay, so today I'm going to talk a little bit about basically subconscious narratives, but in relation to connection, because connection really is the piece of all of the things that help us survive. I mean, do you guys know about that study? Like, I don't, I've not looked this up ever. I just heard about it a ton, but about how they did that study on, I think it was like Russian orphanages, maybe Chinese orphanages way back in the like 60s or 70s. And one group of the babies was like just fed. I don't think they were like held or coddled or anything like that, nurtured while they were fed or in between feedings. And the other group was given touch, and touch is necessary for survival, is essentially what the study concluded. And even though a lot of connection isn't touch, it is what helps us survive all of this. And I'm really passionate about teaching people the reasons why we're staying disconnected from people. So I didn't have anything else to talk about today, so I thought that I would just do this. I'm going to refer back to the presentation. So the thing is that we view behaviors a certain way, especially like as therapists, these behaviors can get really labeled pretty negatively as resistant, avoidant, unmotivated, difficult, self-sabotaging, emotionally unavailable. But if you look at them through this trauma lens and the way that trauma disconnects us from ourselves and connecting with others, then you'll see that all of these things that we are doing just to feel safe and what our nervous system starts to do because it's familiar is protect against vulnerability, try to anticipate rejection, avoid shame narratives, preventing emotional overwhelm, maintaining psychological safety, and repeating familiar attachment patterns. Essentially, through the things that happen in our childhood, and it doesn't even have to be those big T traumas, but anything that leaves us like with the emotional neglect, which I'm sorry, but all of us received at least the bare minimum of emotional neglect, because emotional neglect really is when you didn't have any caregiver or adult to walk you through those emotional developmental milestones. When you are told, it's okay, don't cry. When you are told big girls don't cry. When you are told boys don't cry. When you are told to look at the bright side. When you are told someone has it worse than you, so you shouldn't care about the thing that you're feeling. All of those are forms of emotional neglect. That's not me chastising anyone. None of us knew that. I didn't know that when I was raising kids. The people who raised me didn't know that, nor were they like really even aware of what they were doing. The people before that, like, I'm not saying you have to hate yourself or anyone else, but we have to know what causes these wounds if we want to know how to heal them. Or some of the bigger T traumas, if you were abused, but then a little T trauma, criticism. I see criticism in parenting every single day, questioning your child's outfit or makeup choices or hair choices, criticizing that they made a mistake like spilling the milk or not putting the dog outside and it uses the bathroom inside. Criticism creates a wound. I'm not demonizing or vilifying anybody, but it happens. We all make these mistakes. So it's important to start with the awareness that we know that we make mistakes. It's okay that we make mistakes. Whether or not you have gotten to a place of understanding and or forgiveness with your caregivers, that's irrelevant to this for me, because I really believe resistance keeps us stuck. So telling yourself that you should forgive somebody or that, that's the path to freedom or whatever it is that we believe around forgiveness, that isn't going to help you progress. Sitting with where you actually are in that journey, that's the more important part, truly. So a smaller T trauma too is parentification. If you were an older sibling that provided a lot of the physical care for younger siblings, that is parentification. Or if you were fully responsible for yourself at a young age, cooking for yourself, cleaning up the house, also being responsible for your parents' feelings, like they used you as a therapist, those are things that result in wounding. So some of the core narratives that keep us from connection is people leave, my needs are too much, connection is dangerous, I'll be rejected, I can't trust others. And I want to add the caveat too, when we are saying my needs are too much, we also don't believe that we are enough. And so those are the filters that you start to see all relationships, all connection through. Really, every interaction that you have, work, personal, intimate, friendship, whatever it is, those are the filters that you're applying to your everyday life. And so, like when I was telling you guys about that conversation with my friend, he said that, and again, I think that he just said this because we were texting and I couldn't like explain what I meant, but I said, those are the stories we write, but they can be rewritten. He said, can't rewrite history. The stories that are created, the narratives that are creative, the things that are the experiences that shape the way we see the world, the actual experience can't be rewritten, obviously. But what can be rewritten is the story that we told ourselves that that experience meant about us. And that's truly what is happening, is that you experience something, rejection, abandonment, neglect, betrayal, abuse, and you make that mean something about you, specifically that you're too much or not enough, and that it's not safe for you to trust others. So that's really what I want people to start to be more aware of, is the fact that we all have these narratives and they aren't always super easy to pinpoint. I know that I have experiences where if somebody needs me just a little bit too much, I know that they're more of like an anxious attacher and they message me a lot. And I know that they're going to get upset if I don't message them back quickly, things like that. I feel so much pressure around that. And then ultimately, what it really triggers is that I'm not enough for that. Like, I can't take care of all that. And that's okay, because it's okay for me to not feel like I have the capacity to be somebody's everything. But also, that's not really like I'm aware of that. But what I feel inside is like icky. And the fear is so real that it makes me feel sick because I don't want to disappoint people. So like the friends that I have that are easy breezy, it's okay if we just, touch base here and there if I don't respond. And honestly, like none of this really applies to me post losing Jake because I just can't care that much. But, it does happen on occasion where the fear of disappointing somebody becomes so real that it makes me sick. So the thing is that like if you remember that conversation with Dr. Shannon a few weeks ago about personality, most people through a personality test, Enneagram, any of those things, they kind of are aware of their patterns. Like they know they're a people pleaser. A lot of people can even identify that they're codependent now. I think through the rise of TikTok and other social medias, a lot of people know when they're like anxious versus avoidant. The problem is that they're not always able to pinpoint it in real time and like they don't change it, right? They're like, oh, I'm codependent, as if it's just a brand on them that they can't change, as if it's static and fixed about them. And that's the thing that I really want people to understand, is it's not fixed. Any of these things can be changed. You don't have to continue to tell yourself those same old stories. So, why are these people doing the same exact thing over and over and over, right? So we're going to talk about how insight creates awareness, but safety is what creates change. So many people are trying to think their way out of problems, but the whole thing is about your nervous system and regulating that for safety, rewiring it for safety, because your nervous system was wired a long time ago with those stories, with the way that people interacted with you in early childhood. So Dr. James Cone did research on social baseline theory. I'm looking at my notes, and the research suggests that the human brain evolved expecting access to supportive relationships. So what that means is your brain was designed by whatever created all of us for connection and for support. There is a reason that those individuals that you see that received the least amount of support in their early childhood, early adolescence, that they become somebody who withdraws from connection and are more emotionally unavailable. I mean, let's see, what's an example? Well, I think if you were to look at the statistics on foster children alone, I'm not going to quote any statistics because it's been a long time since I've looked at any studies around that, but obviously children raised in foster care for any amount of time are at an increased risk for a lot of things. It's pretty simple to draw the conclusion that because they didn't receive the type of support they need, they now function in society in a way that keeps them separate from others. The reason you have diagnoses like oppositional defiant disorder and then conduct disorder and antisocial personality disorder essentially is because these humans were wired to believe they can't trust anyone, they can't depend on anyone. So they're not connecting through conversation and getting things out, which is the world's worst thing that you can do to yourself. And they're not relying on others for help. And we need people. We do. We need people. We need help. And there are lots of humans walking around super hyper independent and thinking they don't need anyone for anything. And that's why when you have a teenager with all those hormones and all of the fluctuations, who's been wired to not connect with others because it doesn't feel safe, not to trust others because it doesn't feel safe, to not believe in themselves. They don't believe in themselves at all. You will see some of those conduct disorders, breaking and entering. What is that word? Like tagging, but what is that actual, like, you know what I'm talking about? Whenever, what is the word? Like destruction of private property, all of those things. If you look at behavior from that place, that this human really is just busting hell wide open to keep themselves separate from others because of a story that was written a long time ago, oftentimes not by the individual. It's just the way that the programming hit once they experienced the things that they experienced. That's why you see the things that you see. Your nervous system was never designed to do life alone. It just wasn't. So when you are a person who had to be a parent when you were a child, or constantly told that your experiences weren't important, that it wasn't okay for you to feel the things that you felt, your nervous system becomes wired for disconnection, which is a complete breakdown of the system. So if you think about your nervous system like the hardware of a computer, it's the central processing unit. And you imagine that central processing unit with a virus, that computer's not going to run the way in which it's intended, right? So what will that computer do? So that's the way that you have to think about it. And so that's what's happening when we experience things in childhood that don't create relational safety, and we believe that disconnection is the safety. Obviously, it's not what you believe logically, it's what your subconscious believes. Your subconscious is programmed from the second you're born. And most of us don't have access to that large of a percentage of our subconscious. Our subconscious is our autopilot. Excuse me. So it's running, it's doing the things that we do without even thinking about it. So if your autopilot has a virus, it's probably not going to act in your best interest, but it thinks that it does. It thinks it's running the right code. So what we're trying to do essentially is fix the code, fix the errors, remove the viruses. Even when you remove a virus from a central processing unit, you're still going to have those bugs pop up here and there, right? That's the idea here, is that healing these wounds is not about never being triggered again, never letting a story like that lead our experiences. It's about being aware and then continuing to change through safety, creating the safety within ourselves. So trauma creates distance because of attachment. Attachment is what happens in 0 to 3 typically, and however our needs were met in those years is how we attach, essentially. So attachment isn't just about feeling loved. It's not like, oh, my parents were present and so I know they love me, I love them, great, great, great. It's really about, that's the basis of whether or not connection feels safe for us. That's when we learn whether or not connection is safe. So it's things like, do people come when I need them? Am I too much? Am I worth staying for? Is it safe to need others? Those early experiences become templates that influence adult relationships. So, yes, the things that happened in those early years of your life wrote a story that you have now reinforced over and over, because that story was the basis of all of those interactions that you experienced through childhood, early adolescence, late adolescence, early adulthood. Those stories are what ran your subconscious. Your brain must confirm those things as the truth all the time, all the time, all the time. So that's where I'm going to use the word self-sabotage because it's a familiar word and most people know what it means. But that is where we will not take the correct risks. Oftentimes, we will take the wrong risks. We will push people away. We will pull the wrong people closer. all to confirm the stories that were written, essentially 0 to 3 years of age. So last week I did a solo episode. Wait, was it last week? I think it was last week that I did the solo episode on, am I only worthy when I'm competent? Am I only worthy when I'm sacrificing my own needs? Am I only worthy when I'm pleasing others, when I'm expressing pain? Like, at what point is my voice worth listening to, right? And so that's how attachment works, is that, like, in my family, you had to earn the affection that you got. You had to be quote unquote smart, which didn't mean intelligent. It meant that you were willing to clean up the house without being asked, to be incredibly grateful at all times for anything that your caregiver did for you, that you were seen and not heard, and not seen also fine, that you kind of stayed where you needed to stay unless your presence was requested, and then at that time you better perform in any way that was asked of you. So that was the stuff that earned love and belonging in my family. The kids who cried more than others were really rejected in my family. The kids who did anything considered socially unacceptable, pariah, even in our own family. And I just think that's so messed up, because I can see, though, where that really triggers your own fear just as a human. And especially, like, if you're raising children, like being afraid that their behavior is going to rub off on your child. I don't think that it really works that way for most of those things. But I mean, I can understand. But I'm just saying, like, those were stories that were written for me, that I had to show up. So if you haven't heard of polyvagal theory, essentially they describe a process called neuroception, which is the nervous system's automatic detection of safety or danger before conscious thought occurs. So when we feel safe, our system feels more open to connection and healing and growth. But when danger is detected, a protective response takes over. So that's what neuroception is your nervous system constantly scanning for danger. It's also referred to as hypervigilance. And so it's a constant scan of your environment. And by your environment, it means like I I try really hard not to do this anymore, but like, I try to be very conscious and aware when interacting with other people. But I really studied their facial expressions, their body language, their sounds that they made. And if it didn't sound exactly like my body registered approval, then I assumed that what I was saying wasn't being approved of. And that felt really dangerous to me. Disagreements of any kind really felt pretty unsafe. Again, when I say safe and unsafe, that is just your nervous system response. It's not a conscious thought. That's the whole point of all of this, is learning to be more in the conscious and not the subconscious, and rewiring our subconscious as much as possible so that when we are in the subconscious, it's not constantly going to those protective factors. So, like, have you ever met somebody who was just like really kind, but everything in your body made you want to like run away from them? To me, it's the same as sometimes when, and this is a tricky one, but sometimes when you're thinking of relationships with someone, like I know lots of people who say, if it was too easy, it wasn't for me. Like, if they liked me already, that put them 10 steps behind of any other person in line to date me or whatever, you know? And so I really think that that's part of it, is that if you were wired to believe you had to work and perform for love and belonging, it's gonna be pretty hard for your nerve system to go, "This person is kind to me. They like me. They accept me for exactly who I am. They're not telling me I need to change anything. That is the perfect match for me." Like, it's just not gonna happen. If you're not somebody who's done this work extensively and integrated the knowledge, it's not gonna happen. So that is why you will see that whole, like, if you watch TikTok at all, or you've gotten into like the runner chaser dynamic on any videos on social media. Essentially, those people who, an anxious attachment and avoidant attachment coming together, that's why that dynamic happens, because the avoidant is terrified of connection and views connection as unsafe, and the anxious craves connection, but the only type of connection that feels safe is the one that you have to earn. And the avoidant, typically no connection feels safe because they don't feel worthy of the connection, truly. But I feel like I don't like to get too much into that, because I believe we all are avoidant. Certain people will trigger our anxious attachment parts of us, but And some are more anxious. I was always the anxious attacher, even in friendships. But, you know, that's the thing is that I just think all of us are avoidant. So the hidden purpose of disconnection is what if overthinking is protection? What if people pleasing is protection? What if emotional shutdown is protection? What if hyper independence is protection? And we're not here to shame any of these things about ourselves. Maybe you're seeing a lot of things that are, are in your partner, but it's just about understanding why that's happening. Like I see this so much. Like I know someone who I think their not enough narrative is really strong. And whenever somebody needs them just a little bit too much and it feels like pressure, how can I describe needing too much? Because it's not real. If they feel pressure from their connection, like they're going to have to show up a certain way, then they are going to push that person away every time because they don't feel like they're enough for it. So when I want to invite you guys to think about your own protective factors when connection feels uncertain, whether this is in your family, friends, intimate relationships, whatever, work. Okay, so when connection feels uncertain, do you chase? Think about that. If your friend or somebody, whoever, doesn't respond to a message or just isn't reaching out first, because that used to be my thing sometimes, does it make you double text? Like, I've seen this a lot on like people talking about their dating site stuff. Like somebody doesn't respond to a text message and they're like, and oh my God, I used to be this person. Like I would text, you don't say anything. I'm like, oh, okay, so you just hate me. That's fine. I just wish you could have been honest, blah, 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 blah. And like they might have been busy. They might have been withdrawing from their own relational safety needs, but like I was making it about me because that's what we all do. We project our own shit, right? Do you withdraw? Do you fix? Do you perform? Do you numb? I'm a bad number. I'll do some shit to numb. Do you over explain? Do you become hyper competent, hyper independent? And so once you kind of figure that out, you ask yourself, what is this strategy trying to protect me from feeling? Typically, that's going to come down to those attachment wounds. Is it trying to protect me from feeling betrayal, neglect, abandonment, rejection, abuse? So I would invite you guys to make two lists of people who activate your nervous system and people who help your nervous system settle. So activating your nervous system means it gets your heart rate going a little bit. You're feeling a little bit anxious. So oftentimes family members can activate your nervous system through subtle criticisms, just those same old things that they've done to drive you crazy your whole life. That can activate your nervous system. For me, like Brian is someone who can both activate my nervous system and help my nervous system settle. But really the reason that he can help me settle my nervous system now is because I know what I need to settle my nervous system and I can ask him for that directly and he's more than willing to do it if I ask. I can't expect him to know because we have very different needs for relational safety. He withdraws really bad and I withdraw now. I think my narrative's really switched, not any healthier, but through the years to more of like a I'm too much. And so I'll just be less and take up less space and pretend that things don't bother me when they do and push people away and just not be as available. So, like, I just put more barriers between me and other people. But at first, it was just begging everyone in my life to receive me. And I think they probably did. Again, my story was that I was too much and not enough. So, my subconscious was going to confirm that over and over to make that outer world look like that story that I was telling myself. And I wasn't aware of the story. So now that I am, obviously it changes my dynamics with everyone. But for me to feel safe in relationships, I have to be able to say how I'm feeling and not feel criticized. Anybody who criticizes me can activate my nervous system. That's a tricky one because it can feel like criticism because I'm hypersensitive to criticism, but it's not necessarily criticism. For instance, this is not like related to criticism, but like if somebody says sure in response to me asking something, because I was so fucking terrified to ask for the thing to begin with, I'm looking for really like solid proof that they're not at all upset that I asked. When like sometimes it's okay that a person doesn't seem thrilled to do something for you, but they're willing to do it. Like, well, okay, yeah. Let me figure that out. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so like if I'm looking for proof that you don't want to do this for me, the word sure is the first way to get me to react. So here is an exercise called borrowing safety. I want you to think about who one person is whose voice helps your shoulders drop. Just listening to them talk just feels good. And you can drop those shoulders and just be present with them. My friend who we went on this vacation with, I feel like even before losing Jake, I have felt this way about her, but she really made it her job to learn me and know me intimately. And to me, that shows me that she really values our relationship and values me, that she wanted to create relational safety with me. And I love that. And being with her is so safe because I know she's not going to criticize me. She's going to meet me exactly where I am. Even if we do things so different and she gets a little carried away with how she's like expressing that opinion, we both do that. We will always come back home to, yeah, but man, that I get it. Like, I'm so sorry. So that is somebody who really I feel so safe with. I can think of other friendships that truly I can picture now thinking about the relationship and the interactions and the experiences where truly I am a little more contracted. I am bracing for them to hurt me and not like now that I'm aware of that, which may have just happened in this exercise, honestly. But now that I'm aware of that, I also know, well, I'm probably taking so much of their shit personally. And a lot of that was related to me feeling like I had to perform in those relationships so that they didn't judge me, so that they yeah, mostly judge. Yeah. Yeah. Mostly I cared if they judge me. But like, who do you have in your life that makes you feel soft and like you can be whoever you need to be in that moment? And I do have several. I really do. And I feel really grateful for that because there was a time that I wouldn't have seen that and I wouldn't have been able to identify really anyone. And I think that me feeling activated by Brian and not feeling like I could show up however I wanted to was because I was putting all those barriers between us. But, I do still be fucking with people sometimes that I don't feel necessarily safe with. And I think, honest, if I'm just being really honest, doing this exercise right now, asking myself that question right along with you guys, I'm not necessarily going to just quit tending to the relationships that I can identify that I don't feel that dropping of the shoulder sensation, but yet feel the like contracting. I'm not going to necessarily quit tending to those relationships, but I do think it's going to be important to chill and show up as myself anyway, and then go from there. So anyway, that's probably it for today. I would invite you guys to send a text to your person that you thought of that makes your shoulders drop. Schedule a coffee, sit with someone safe, understand that we are hardwired for connection. We just don't feel safe most of the time with it. So we are going to learn how to feel safe in connection. So hope you enjoyed this. I didn't have anything else to talk about really. And I've applied for a couple of TEDx talks. And so I'm kind of figuring out which parts of this conversation I feel really passionate about because I'm going to believe that I will at least get an interview and I want to be really ready to talk about it. So I appreciate you guys listening. Hope it helps. I'd love your feedback, what you learned about it, what was confusing. That would be really great. Hey guys, guess what? I'm noticing. So for the first time ever, I actually got notifications about comments on Spotify. Haven't gotten any notifications about comments or whatever on Apple, but I did get notifications about Spotify. I do appreciate you guys interacting in that way. It's very helpful. Thank you. Please continue that. Share the podcast with somebody that you know this week. I would appreciate that. Pushing for that top 3%. I'm in the top 5% right now, which is wonderful. If you like the show, if it's ever done anything for you and you want to give back, the way that you can do that is through the Patreon. The $5 tier gets you ad-free early episodes. The $10 tier gets you access to the growing library of resources. And the $20 will give you the ability to be coached with me. So anyway, appreciate you guys and I love you. So thank you for being here. Like I said, share with people. And yeah, I will see you guys later. Thanks for coming to Emotionally Unavailable. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, and share.